"You're disappearing, man." Those words hit me through the phone while I lay on my couch staring at ceiling stains. My buddy Devin was at some bar downtown, music thumping behind his voice. "When's the last time you did something that wasn't work?" I'm Marcus, 29 years old, and I fix broken pipes for a living in Seattle. Not the exciting kind of plumber you see saving the day in movies. Just the regular guy who shows up when your toilet won't stop running or your sink decides to flood your kitchen at midnight. My life had turned into this loop I couldn't break. Wake up before sunrise, choke down coffee that tastes like dirt, drive my beat-up Ford truck to whatever house or building needs me that day, crawl under sinks, snake out drains, tighten connections, come home smelling like sewage and covered in grime, heat up whatever's in the fridge, pass out, start over. My apartment was proof of how far I'd let things slide. Pizza boxes stacked near the trash, work boots caked in mud by the door, dishes piling up in the sink, which is ironic since I fix other people's sinks all day. This was my existence, and I'd convinced myself it was fine. "I'm good," I told Devin, which was my automatic response to everything. "You're not good. When's the last time you went on a date?" 3 years. "Almost 3. I corrected him. "See? That's the problem right there. You're keeping score of how long you've been alone like it's something to brag about." He had a point. My last real date ended badly. Her name was Rachel, and she worked at some tech company doing things I didn't understand. Over dinner, she asked about my 5-year plan. I remember shrugging because honestly, my plan was to pay rent next month and maybe save enough to fix my truck's transmission. She gave me this look like I was a building with a cracked foundation, too much work to bother fixing. After that night, she stopped answering my texts. I stopped trying to meet anyone new. "Listen," Devin continued, and I could hear the scheming in his voice. "I've got a neighbor. She's nice, normal, works at that trauma center on Cedar Street. Been through some stuff, but who hasn't, right? Devin, I don't need you playing matchmaker. 2 months of bar tabs. I'll cover everything if it goes badly." I sat up. 2 months. You heard me. If you hate it, if it's weird, if she turns out to collect human bones or whatever, I'll buy your drinks for 8 solid weeks. But you have to actually show up and give it a real shot. 1 coffee. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. The thing about Devin is he knows exactly when I'm out of excuses. We met 5 years back on a big construction project, this massive office building downtown. Spent months working side by side, him doing electrical work while I handled all the plumbing. We talked about everything during those long days. Sports, relationships, why things never seem to work out the way you hope. He was there when Jenna broke up with me because I was emotionally unavailable. Her words, not mine. She wanted to talk about where we'd be in 10 years. I just wanted to enjoy where we were right then. That wasn't enough for her. "Fine," I heard myself say. 1 coffee. But when this crashes and burns, you're buying the good stuff, not cheap beer. Devin laughed. "Deal." Saturday afternoon. That cafe on Madison with the weird wooden furniture. 2 o'clock. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. She'd take one look at me. Dirty work clothes, rough hands, truck that needed a wash, and decide she could do better. Or we'd sit in painful silence, both watching the clock, counting minutes until we could escape. Or worst of all, it might go okay. Just okay enough that I'd start hoping again. Then she'd ghost me once she realized I was exactly who I appeared to be. A guy with no fancy career, no big dreams, just someone trying to get through each day without falling behind. Saturday arrived faster than I wanted. Friday night, I actually cleaned my apartment for the first time in weeks, which made no sense since she wasn't coming over. But doing something, anything, helped with the nerves. I washed my truck too, scrubbing at mud that had practically become part of the paint. Found my least wrinkled shirt. Picked out jeans without holes. Small victories. The cafe was one of those places trying really hard to look casual. Salvaged wood everywhere. Chairs that didn't match but probably cost more than my rent. Light bulbs hanging on long cords from the ceiling like someone forgot to finish installing them. It smelled amazing though. Dark coffee mixed with cinnamon and something sweet from the pastry display. I got there 15 minutes early because being late to anything makes my skin crawl. Years of job sites where showing up late means losing work had trained that into me. I grabbed a table by the window where I could see the door. If things went south, I had a clear exit and my truck was parked right outside. I pulled out my phone and pretended to read something important, but really I was just staring at the same article about traffic problems downtown, not absorbing a single word. My coffee sat untouched, getting cold. Other people came and went. A couple in the corner arguing quietly about whose turn it was to call someone's mother. Some guy with a laptop taking up a whole table, typing like he was writing the most important email ever created. The barista kept calling out drink orders in that sing-song voice. Caramel macchiato for Trevor. Large Americano. The door opened and I looked up automatically. Not her, just a teenager with headphones. It opened again. A mom with 2 kids who immediately started fighting over which pastry they wanted. I checked my phone. 1:58. Maybe she wouldn't show. Maybe Devin made the whole thing up as some weird experiment. Maybe she'd somehow found out about my apartment or my truck or my complete lack of anything impressive and decided to save us both the trouble. Then at exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened again and I knew immediately it was her. Something about the way she paused just inside, taking a breath like she was preparing for something difficult. She looked to be in her early 30s with shoulder-length chestnut hair, neat and practical. She wore a burgundy sweater over a cream-colored shirt and dark jeans. Her shoulders were pulled slightly inward, like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. Our eyes met across the cafe and for a second I thought about looking away, pretending I hadn't seen her, giving her an out. But I didn't. I raised my hand in a small wave. She gave a tiny nod and started walking toward my table, weaving between chairs and other customers. With each step, I could see more details. The careful way she moved, how her hands were tucked partially into her sweater sleeves, the expression on her face that was trying to be a smile but looked more like armor. "Hi," she said when she reached the table. Her voice was soft but steady. "You must be Marcus." "Yeah, that's me," I replied, standing up quickly and extending my hand. "Sophia, right?" We shook hands briefly. Her grip was firm, but she pulled away fast. Like touching a stranger even for that long was uncomfortable. She sat down across from me and immediately started fidgeting with the edge of her sweater sleeve. "Thanks for agreeing to this," she said, glancing around the cafe like she was checking exits too. "Devin can be pretty persistent. He bribed me with 2 months of bar tabs," I admitted, trying to lighten the mood. She smiled a little at that, a real one this time. "He told me he'd stop bugging me about getting out more if I just tried once. Guess we're both here under pressure. The best start to any friendship," I joked, and immediately wished I'd chosen a different word because who mentions friendship at the start of a first date? But she laughed quietly, and some of the tension eased. "Should we get you a coffee?" I asked, grateful for something practical to do. "I can grab it. What do you want?" "Just regular coffee. Black. Nothing fancy." She paused, then added, "I work with people in pain all day. I like things simple and straightforward." She said it matter-of-factly, but there was weight behind those words that I didn't fully understand yet. While I went to order her coffee, I snuck glances back at the table. She sat very still, hands wrapped around herself, looking out the window at the street. When I came back with her drink, she thanked me quietly and wrapped both hands around the cup like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "So Devin said you work at a trauma center?" I started, falling into the standard first date script. "Yeah, I'm a physical therapist. Mostly people who've been in accidents or fires, helping them regain movement and strength." She took a sip of coffee. "What about you?" Devin mentioned plumbing work. I nodded. "Nothing exciting. I fix leaks, install pipes, make sure things don't flood or break. It's steady work. Sounds important though. People need running water. People need physical therapy too. Probably more than they need another office building with working toilets." We fell into that awkward rhythm of first dates, trading basic information like we were filling out forms for each other. "Where did you grow up?" "Right here in the Seattle area." "Any siblings?" "One sister, she moved to Portland for nursing school." "Favorite food?" I don't know, tacos probably. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. But I kept noticing little things. The way she never fully relaxed in her chair. How her hands stayed hidden in her sleeves even while holding the coffee cup. The careful way she chose her words, like she was constantly editing herself before speaking. 20 minutes in, we'd covered jobs, families, neighborhoods, all the usual topics. The conversation was fine. Not terrible, but not great either. Just two strangers being polite because a mutual friend thought it was a good idea. Then something shifted. Sophia set down her coffee cup and looked directly at me for the first time since we'd sat down. Really looked at me, like she was trying to decide something important. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Anything. Why did you say yes to this? Really, not the bar tab thing. What made you actually show up?" The question caught me off guard because it was real, not more small talk about favorite movies or weekend plans. I thought about giving her some easy answer, but something about the way she asked made me want to be honest. "I guess I got tired of my own excuses," I said slowly. "I've been telling myself for 3 years that I'm fine alone, that it's easier this way, that I don't need anyone. And maybe that's true. But Devin was right about one thing. I am disappearing. Just fading into this routine where nothing ever changes and nothing ever hurts. But nothing ever feels good either. So I figured, what's the worst that happens? We have an awkward hour and I go back to my apartment and my boring life. At least I tried." She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. "I have a similar reason for being here," she said quietly. "Except my excuse has been 5 years, not 3. 5 years since a date. 5 years since I let anyone see the real me." She pulled her hands back from the coffee cup and placed them flat on the table, still covered by her sweater sleeves. Her fingers were tapping lightly, nervous energy she couldn't quite hide. "I'm going to do something now," she said, her voice changing, becoming more direct. "And after I do it, you're probably going to want to leave. Most people do. I just want to get it over with early, so we both stop wasting time." My heart started beating faster. "Okay," I said, having no idea what was coming. Sophia looked around the cafe quickly, then back at me. She reached for the sleeve of her burgundy sweater with her opposite hand. "I should probably just show you." Slowly, carefully, she pulled back the fabric, revealing her forearm. The skin was covered in scars. Not small ones you'd barely notice, but thick raised lines of scar tissue. Patterns of burns that twisted from her wrist up her arm, disappearing under the fabric near her elbow. The scars were pink and white against her skin, permanent marks that told a story of serious pain. Some areas looked smooth and tight, others were bumpy and uneven. It was immediately clear these weren't from some minor kitchen accident. This was major trauma. The cafe noise seemed to fade into background static. I could hear the espresso machine hissing somewhere behind me, people talking at other tables, a chair scraping against the floor, but it all felt distant and muffled. My eyes stayed on her arm, not because I was staring rudely, but because she was showing me something incredibly personal, and looking away felt like rejection. "This is what I meant about the real me," Sophia said, her voice calm and matter-of-fact, like she'd rehearsed this speech before. "I was in a fire 5 years ago. 3rd-degree burns, skin grafts, the whole nightmare. This is my left arm and shoulder. The scars go further, but I'm not doing a full show in a coffee shop." She left her arm exposed on the table between us, vulnerable and honest. "Here's the thing I learned pretty quickly after I healed enough to start dating again. No one will ever love me. Not with these. I've tried hiding them with long sleeves and makeup and scarves, but eventually people see. And when they do, something changes. They get this look in their eyes. Pity mixed with discomfort. They start making excuses. They stop calling. So I've started doing this instead. Just putting it out there immediately. Saves everyone time." She looked at me, waiting, testing. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes held challenge and resignation mixed together. This was the moment where most people probably said something polite and found a reason to check their phone, to remember a sudden appointment, to leave money on the table and disappear forever. I realized my hands had moved across the table without me consciously deciding to do it. My fingers were near her exposed arm, not quite touching. Can I? I asked quietly. She looked confused. Can you what? Can I pull your sleeve back down? Her confusion deepened. Why would you want to do that? Because I don't think you should have to sit here feeling exposed and uncomfortable just to test whether I'm worth your time. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. So you're leaving? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No, I said firmly. I'm staying. I'm here to stay, actually. And I think if I got up and walked out right now, that's something I'd regret for the rest of my life. For several seconds, Sophia just stared at me like I was speaking a different language. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I gently took the edge of her sweater sleeve and pulled it back down, covering the scars again. Not because they bothered me or because I wanted to hide them, but because the way she'd exposed herself felt like she was accepting something painful as inevitable, and I wanted her to know it didn't have to be that way. Not with me. I don't understand, she finally said. You saw them. You saw what I look like. Why would you stay? I leaned back in my chair, trying to figure out how to put complicated feelings into simple words. My uncle used to work on old motorcycles. I started, which seemed random, but I kept going. He'd buy these beat-up bikes that other people had given up on, and he'd spend months fixing them in his garage. I remember asking him once why he bothered, why he didn't just buy something new and perfect. And he said something I never forgot. He said, "The perfect-looking things are boring because you never learn their story. But the damaged things, the ones with dents and rust and history, those are interesting. Those teach you something." Sophia was listening closely, her hand now resting on her covered arm. You think I'm an old motorcycle? She asked, and there was the tiniest hint of humor in her voice. I think you're someone who's been through something terrible and came out the other side still trying, still showing up to awkward coffee dates, still working a job helping other people heal. That's not broken. That's the opposite of broken. She looked down at her coffee and I saw her jaw clench like she was fighting back tears. When she looked back up, her eyes were shiny, but no tears fell. People don't usually react this way, she said softly. How do they usually react? They try to be nice about it. They say supportive things like, "You're so brave," or, "That must have been hard." Then they find reasons to end the date early. They text later saying they don't think it's a good match, or they just disappear completely. I've learned that initial kindness doesn't mean much. It's what happens after, in the days and weeks that follow, that shows the truth. Then I guess you'll have to wait and see what happens in the days and weeks that follow, I said, because I meant what I said. I'm here to stay. We sat in silence for a moment, but it felt different than before. The tension had lifted somehow. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it was real. No more small talk about jobs and neighborhoods. We jumped straight past all of that into something deeper. Do you want to know what happened? Sophia asked, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. In the fire, I mean, the full story. Only if you want to tell it, I replied. I'm not going anywhere. She took a slow breath, organizing her thoughts. It was 5 years ago. I was 26, living in this old apartment building downtown, the kind with character, which really means outdated wiring and creaky floors. But I liked it. I was alone that night, just me in my apartment. Her voice was steady, like she'd told the story enough times that the edges weren't quite so sharp anymore. It was late October. I'd spent the day working at the trauma center. Came home tired. I went to bed around 10:30 because I had patients scheduled early the next morning. She paused, took a sip of coffee. Around 1:30 in the morning, the fire alarm went off. These alarms went off constantly in that building for random reasons. Burnt toast, someone's shower steam, whatever. So at first I wasn't worried. I just laid there annoyed, waiting for it to stop. But then I smelled smoke. Real smoke, not just someone's cooking. The cafe continued around us. Someone laughed at another table. The espresso machine beeped. But I was completely focused on Sophia, on the story she was trusting me with. The fire started in the apartment below mine. Electrical problem they figured out later. Old building, old wiring, just waiting for something to go wrong. It spread fast, incredibly fast. By the time I got out of my bedroom, the hallway was already filling with smoke. Her hand tightened around her coffee cup. The heat hit me first when I opened my bedroom door, like opening an oven, but the whole hallway was the oven. Smoke everywhere, thick and black. I couldn't see more than a few feet. I tried to get to the apartment door, but flames were already eating through the hallway. The wood was all black and orange and falling apart. I reached for the door handle anyway, and that's when my arm hit the burning frame. Just brushed against it, but it was enough. Sophia stopped and looked at her covered sleeve. The pain was like nothing I'd felt before, sharp and deep and hot all at the same time. But something in my brain just said, move. So I moved, got to a window, broke it with a chair, and crawled out onto the fire escape. Firefighters showed up maybe 5 minutes later, but it felt like hours. Her voice got quieter. I was in the hospital for 2 months. The burns covered most of my left arm and part of my shoulder. 3rd degree in some spots. That means all the layers of skin were gone. They had to take skin from my leg to graft onto my arm. Then infections started. My body kept rejecting the grafts. I had 5 surgeries total. Physical therapy after that was worse than the fire in some ways. Every movement felt like being burned all over again. It took more than a year before I could lift my arm above my head without crying. The cafe felt too bright suddenly. Too normal for this kind of story. What about after? I asked gently. When you could finally go home? She gave a small smile, but it wasn't happy. Going home was weird because I didn't have a home to go back to anymore. The apartment was gone. Everything I owned. Photo albums, my books, my clothes, furniture. All of it just smoke and ash. I stayed with my aunt for a while, but that was hard. She meant well, but she looked at me like I was broken glass, like I might shatter if she said the wrong thing. Sophia picked up her coffee cup but didn't drink from it, just held it. The hardest part wasn't even the pain or the scars. It was looking in the mirror. I avoided mirrors for almost 2 months. Nurses would try to hand me one and I'd turn away. Finally, one of them, this older woman named Beth, she just put a mirror in my lap and left the room, so I had to look. And when I did, I didn't recognize myself. The scars were so big and twisted and red. They looked angry, like they were still burning. I tried makeup later, but you can't cover raised skin. It just makes it look worse. Eventually, I stopped trying to hide them from myself. But hiding them from everyone else felt necessary. Every time someone stared on the bus or in a store, it reminded me of everything I'd lost. Now it was her turn to ask questions. She set down her cup and looked right at me. What about you, Marcus? You seem like the kind of person who listens but never talks about himself. Why are you really here? Why'd you say yes to this blind date? I leaned back in my chair. Funny how her honesty made it easier to be honest back. I grew up without much money. Not poor exactly, but close. My dad drove delivery trucks, worked overnight shifts. My mom worked at a grocery store, came home tired every single day. We got by, but there was always this feeling of being behind. Other kids got new bikes for their birthdays. I got my cousin's old one with the seat taped up. Other kids went to summer camp. I mowed lawns and saved up just to buy school supplies. That feeling stuck with me, like I'm always going to be the guy with the taped-up bike. I drank some coffee even though it had gone lukewarm. Dating never went well for me. Had a few girlfriends in my 20s, but they all ended the same way. They'd say, "You're a good person, Marcus, but..." And then came the reasons. I don't have big dreams. I'm happy with a simple job and a small apartment. I don't want to climb any ladders or make lots of money or move to some big city. And after hearing that enough times, I just stopped trying. Started pulling away first because it hurt less than being left behind. So yeah, I hide too, just in a different way. We both went quiet again, but this time the silence felt connected, like we'd found something we both understood without having to explain it. Sophia looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. So why haven't you left? Most people would have been gone the second I showed them these. She touched her sleeve. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Because you're the first person in forever who gets it. Not just surviving day by day, but trying to figure out how to actually live instead of just exist. And maybe I need to remember how to do that too. She nodded slowly, taking in my words. Then she said quietly, "Okay." We talked more after that, but lighter stuff. She told me about her favorite bookstore that wasn't far from here. I told her about a job site where I accidentally flooded an entire basement and everyone thought a pipe had burst. She laughed. A real laugh that made her whole face brighten. The cafe started emptying out. Workers heading home. College students packing up laptops. The barista started wiping down the counter. I checked my phone and realized we'd been sitting there for almost 3 hours. "We don't have to call this dating," I said. "No pressure or expectations or any of that. What if we just try being friends? Two people who don't want to vanish into the background alone." Sophia's fingers drummed on the table while she thought. Then she smiled, smaller but genuine. "Yeah, I'd like that." We stood up and I insisted on paying. She argued but gave up when the barista looked impatient. Outside, the air was cool and slightly damp. Seattle weather always ready to rain. We didn't hold hands or make promises about forever. But when we split up, her walking toward the bus stop and me heading to my truck, something felt different. Like a door had opened that I didn't even know was closed. And for the first time in years, I wasn't scared to walk through it. 3 days passed before I texted her. Not because I didn't want to talk, but because I kept typing messages and deleting them. Everything sounded too eager or too casual or just wrong. Finally, I just wrote, "Hope work's not too crazy. Simple, safe." She answered an hour later with a picture. Gray clouds filling the sky. The caption said, "Better than yesterday." That became how we talked. Short messages, random photos, nothing forced. A week later, she sent me a picture of a weird sculpture outside her work with the message, "Someone got paid to make this." I sent back a photo of tangled pipes in a wall with, "Someone got paid to install this too." Apparently, after 2 weeks of texting, I suggested meeting up. Not at a cafe this time, somewhere less formal. There's a park near my job site. Decent benches, decent sandwiches from the deli next door. "Interested?" She said yes. The park was small, squeezed between warehouses and the highway. Not pretty, but quiet. There was a pond that always looked slightly green and benches that faced it. I got there first with sandwiches and chips. She showed up 10 minutes later with 2 coffees in a cardboard holder. "Wasn't sure how you take it, so I got cream and sugar on the side," she said, sitting down next to me. We ate and talked about surface stuff. Her busy week at the therapy center. My story about dropping a wrench through drywall onto someone's desk below. She laughed and almost spit out her coffee. But slowly the conversation shifted deeper. She talked about her patients, how helping burn survivors gave her purpose but also brought everything back. Every bandage change, every skin graft discussion reminded her of her own hospital months. "There's this kid, 7 years old, burned his hand on a stove," she said, staring at the pond. "His mom brings him twice a week. He cries during therapy because moving his fingers hurts, and I know exactly how it feels. Sometimes I have to step out of the room for a minute because it's too much." I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. 2 weeks after that, she texted me late at night. Just 3 words. "Rough shift. Walk." I met her at a waterfront trail 20 minutes later. Joggers passed by in reflective gear. Someone walked 3 dogs on leashes that kept tangling. Sophia showed up in a hoodie with the sleeves pulled over her hands even though it wasn't cold. We walked without talking at first. Finally she said, "A coworker said something today. Not mean, just thoughtless." She said, "You're so strong dealing with your past every day." But the way she said it, I could tell she was thinking about my scars. How everyone probably whispers about them when I'm not around. Poor Sophia. Brave Sophia. Damaged Sophia. Her voice cracked a little on the last word. "I hate it, Marcus. The stares. The pity. The way some people look disgusted and try to hide it. I've had people move seats on the bus. Had a guy at a store ask if I was contagious. Every single day I have to decide if I'm going to cover up and sweat or show my arms and deal with the looks. And I'm so tired of making that choice." After she said that, she went quiet for 3 days. No texts, no pictures, nothing. I didn't push or demand answers. Just sent one message. Here whenever you're ready. On day 4 she finally replied. Sorry. Can we get coffee? I'll explain. We met at a different place this time, smaller and less crowded. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't been sleeping. I do this, she said before I could even say hello. Pull away when things feel too real. When someone gets close enough to see the mess underneath. It's not fair to you, but I don't know how to stop. You don't have to apologize, I told her. Do you though? She looked at me hard. Because I'm always going to be like this. The scars aren't going away. The nightmares aren't going away. The fear that everyone's judging me isn't going away. That's a lot to deal with. I've got my own stuff, I said. Maybe not visible, but it's there. We all carry things. She seemed to relax a tiny bit after that. A month into our friendship, I told her about the volunteer project. It's this weekend. Community build for families recovering from accidents. We're putting in ramps and handrails, making houses easier to move around in. It's for a good cause. You should come. Her face went tight immediately. I don't know. That's a lot of people, a lot of attention. You don't have to, I said quickly. Just thought I'd mention it. That night I texted her. If you decide to come, I'll stick with you the whole time. You won't be alone in it. Saturday morning came and I didn't expect to see her. Volunteers were already hammering and measuring when I pulled up. Then I saw her walking across the grass and my breath stopped. She wore a short-sleeved green shirt. Her scars were completely visible in daylight. Those thick, twisted lines of healed burns running up her arm. She looked terrified, but she kept walking toward me anyway. You came? I said, probably smiling too big. Don't make a big deal about it, she muttered. But she was smiling too. Some adults noticed her scars. Their eyes lingered for a second before they looked away, trying to be polite. But kids don't know polite. A group of them ran over, some with bandages or braces of their own. Your arm looks like mine. A little girl held up her own bandaged hand proudly. Sophia froze. Her eyes found mine and I could see panic there. I nodded at her, trying to say without words that she could do this. She knelt down slowly. Her voice shook at first. It does, doesn't it? I got hurt a long time ago. It hurt a lot, but I got through it. Did you cry? A boy asked. Yeah, I cried, Sophia admitted. Crying's okay when things hurt. How come they're bumpy? Another kid asked, reaching out to touch. Sophia let them run their small fingers over the raised scars while she explained in simple words. Sometimes when skin gets really hurt, it heals differently. It gets thick and bumpy, but it's still strong. Maybe even stronger than before. Like a superhero? The first girl asked, eyes wide. Sophia laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, kind of like that. Like a phoenix. You know what a phoenix is? The kids shook their heads. It's a bird that goes through fire and comes out even more amazing than before. The fire doesn't destroy it. It makes it special. The kids ate it up. Started asking her to sign their casts and bandages like she was famous. By the time their parents called them back, Sophia was smiling bigger than I'd ever seen. When things wound down, she pulled me aside near a newly installed ramp. I never thought I could do that, she said. Her voice was thick, like she might cry, but in a good way. Show everything. Let people see. Let kids touch them. But you were there, and it made me feel like maybe I could try trusting people again. Even though it scares me more than almost anything. I took her hand without thinking. Her skin was warm against mine. I'm scared too, I said. But I think we can figure this out together. However slow it needs to go. She squeezed my hand back and didn't let go for a long time. Months passed like pages turning in a book. Hospital visits when exhaustion caught up with her. Meeting my mom, who hugged her without hesitation. Art classes Sophia started teaching for kids dealing with trauma. Support groups where she shared her story with growing confidence. Quiet nights on her balcony watching Seattle's lights glow below us. One evening she said, I used to think no one could love someone like me. Not really. Not with all this damage. She smiled. Now I know it just takes one person willing to stay. A year after our cafe meeting, I took her back to that same table by the window. I got down on one knee and pulled out a simple ring. "Will you marry me?" She said yes before I even finished asking. 6 months later, we married in my mom's garden, surrounded by wildflowers. Sophia wore a dress without sleeves, her scars visible in the afternoon sunlight. We'd both found what we'd been searching for all along. Someone who saw past everything else straight to the truth underneath. We weren't perfect, but together we were whole.